the whole airdrop thing was something that wasn't even supposed to come out for a long while. But somebody simply called it an airdrop, and the community has kind of grabbed that, like, oh my god, KSX airdrop is incoming and it's going to happen next week. And you get people thinking, you get people going like, free money.
Hello and welcome to Crypto Interviews. My name is Claudio and this is CryptoChain, the channel where I do crypto news, reviews, tutorials, and interviews. And today joining me to talk about ChainX is Alex, who's actually an admin in the ChainX Telegram group, but he's also close to the ChainX team. So we're going to find out more information about ChainX, be it if you're a beginner and you've never heard of ChainX, or if you've been in the ChainX community for quite some time and you just want to find out more information on what's going on with the progress of ChainX, where are we heading, and just as much information as possible, right? So Alex, welcome. And if you could please quickly introduce yourself to the person that's probably new and has never heard of you.
Thank you. I actually think there will be a lot of people that have never heard of me. My name is Alex Vogels. I am the operator of Xbox node. I also found a lot in the ChainX Telegram. I am the community manager for the overseas community. And I kind of communicate between the Chinese devs and the English community on things that we can improve, things that we can change, how things work, whether there's problems. And behind the scenes, I help a little bit with designing some elements, designing or thinking about like how are we going to do this, how are we going to do that, and some more administrative stuff, roughly.
No, that's great. Thank you for that. And how do you actually talk to the devs at ChainX? Because we know that they are based in China, right? So do the devs speak English? I know that the lead dev has actually, or one of the lead devs has actually translated the Polkadot white paper in Chinese.
Yeah,
so obviously they speak English, right? Some of them, but how do you actually communicate with them? What do you use to communicate with them?
In China, WeChat is very popular, and for that reason, I am also using WeChat. As a foreigner getting into WeChat, it's a little bit more complicated because you can sign up, but at that point you are kind of like locked behind this wall, and then you have to get somebody that is either Chinese or somebody that already has WeChat to verify you as a sort of referral link. And without the referral link, you're not getting in. But once you're in, you can basically browse through everything that happens on WeChat. It's kind of like a Instagram / Facebook / Twitter combination in terms of what is on there. Wow. Very weird because everything is in Chinese. Even the buttons are in Chinese. Most buttons are translated to English, but at the same time, you have to think a little bit and like, what does this do? What does that do? Oh crap, that that type of thing.
Yeah.
But no, the lead devs, most of the core devs, they, or actually all the core devs, they speak pretty good English, actually, especially written English is pretty good. So communication isn't much of an issue as long as you stick to, basic English and formal English, because WeChat has this little translate function within the app itself. So as long as they're speaking formal Chinese and I'm speaking formal English, we can translate what we're saying and we can still, understand each other and communicate that way.
That's great. Thank you for that. And actually, if you want to quickly summarize, maybe like in a short time frame, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, what ChainX is about, just for a new person that's watching this and doesn't know what we're talking about.
To put it in the simplest of terms, ChainX is a Polkadot project. It is built on the same architecture substrate, and it bridges Bitcoin into a Polkadot environment. Kind of think RenBTC. And that's kind of where the similarities end, but just to give you an idea. Now, what it then does is it sort of makes a substrate version of Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin is locked on the Bitcoin network in a couple of wallets. Then with that substrate version, you can then do whatever. We will be building a sort of basic DeFi platform and a dApps platform on which people can, also using Solidity, I believe, make their own dApps, etc. That's for future stuff mostly. We're focused on the bridging part right now. And through the connection with Polkadot, you could use XBTC, the substrate version of Bitcoin. You could use that in Akala, you could use that in Plasm, you could use that in anything really. You could use any Polkadot project. You could use XBTC to as a mortgage for loans, as I don't know, maybe even in some games. Imagine World of Warcraft on Polkadot to buy, I don't know, an in-game item of a sword or something.
That would be awesome if we had that.
That could be possible.
The way forward, the way forward. Thank you. And actually, let's talk a bit about XBTC, because we know that that's going to be important. We know it's going to be integrated into Akala. And if you don't know, Alex, I just mentioned it and I have covered it in various videos. But what's XBTC 2.0 all about? Because we've seen a recent article posted on Twitter by the ChainX team. Actually, that was posted yesterday. So if you could please just elaborate a bit on XBTC 2.0, how does it differ from 1.0?
How to put it simply, XBTC 1.0 is a trustee system in the sense that the Bitcoin locked on the Bitcoin chain is all done automatically. So you send your Bitcoin along with an OP return. An OP return is a sort of label you add to your transaction, in which you put, in a hex format, you put your ChainX wallet address, and you send it to this address, and the system, which is a light node system. Light node is sort of like a very small Bitcoin node that does very basic reading functions. It records that you've deposited something. It reads the little label on the side, and it's like, that's that person's XBTC. It takes it in, and it gives you XBTC on the ChainX network. Now, when you want to do the opposite and you want to withdraw XBTC back out and back onto the Bitcoin chain, because Bitcoin itself isn't Turing complete, it doesn't have smart contracts, it doesn't have any sort of coding that you can put on it that it will do on its own. It really just does sending and receiving. Because of that, the smart contract puts everything ready, and it burns the XBTC, and it gives the trustee nodes, of which there are 6 at the top of my head. It gives them a notification like, hey, this person wanted to withdraw something. Or the system has confirmed that the XBTC is burned. It's ready to be sent, but you guys need to all put in your key and flip the switch in order to actually send the Bitcoin. That is the trustee system, and that's XBTC 1.0. Now, what we're doing with XBTC 2.0 is that we are, instead of using that system that we devised ourselves, we're going to use something called Xclaim. Now, to keep everything simple, Xclaim is a protocol that was built by the Interlay guys, or I think in last 2 years, something like that. They've been working on that specifically for Polkadot, which is the easiest way to put it is that it's a smart contract, even though it depends on your terminology of smart contracts. And I know that there's going to be a couple of very technical devs out there that are going to be like, what did he just say? But bear with me, trying to put it in simple terms. It's a system that sort of does all of this, but automatically, and as much as possible without manual steps. And instead of having a couple of trustee nodes that have been vetted by the devs before and that have, been doing this for a while, instead of these couple of nodes that have to do this, it becomes a dynamic thing. You could become a vault. I could become a vault. I say vault. We can sort of tie a Bitcoin address to our wallets in a sort of way, in which we can then put like this little bag of PCX. We can put that aside, and we can say this is collateral for the Bitcoin that I'll be holding for someone. So what this creates is that anyone could become a Bitcoin vault. Anyone could receive Bitcoin and tell the system like, hey, okay, somebody's deposited Bitcoin, give them the XBTC. Everything like that is done automatically. And then even automatically, as far as I know. Now, that is XBTC 2.0 in its essence. How that is going to be changed or upgraded, so to speak, is where we are getting into the more difficult stuff. XBTC 3.0 and 4.0, which will be coming, which will be following shortly after this, is that every deposit will be split into a couple of private keys. So you have basically one key for a deposit, and that gets split into 6 or 7 pieces. And then a couple of these vaults will all have one of these pieces. And in order to actually do something, they'll need to all agree and all read like, okay, hey, I have seen that the XBTC is burnt. Everything is fine. Press the button and send it away. Automated, but that's the theory behind it. And 4.0 would actually make the user who originally deposited the BTC part of that system. So they would hold like a special veto key close to their hearts so they can't lose it. And then either sell that XBTC to somebody else or they would put it or sell it through one of the DEXs, Polkaswap or Hydra DX, for example. If you put it in there and then sell it, that key like kind of goes along with it. But that key is a veto key, and that key is needed to withdraw that XBTC again. So it becomes this very powerful key that needs to be burned, or that needs to be used in order to burn the XBTC and to send back the BTC. Kind of complicated.
It's very
sort of makes sense.
No, I hope so too. But one thing I want to get back to here is with regards to PCX as collateral and also the Vault nodes. So the first question I have is with regards to the Vault nodes. Can the validator nodes actually become Vault nodes, and will they need to somehow have like 2 separate nodes running? One would be like the Vault node and one would be the continuous validator node, which will create the new blocks, or how will that actually work? Or are they like totally separate entities and they don't actually need to be a validator? Can you just set up a Vault node independently from the candidate?
What I understood initially, was that it would have to be a sort of like extra function of a node. But reading the announcement myself and going through the steps and trying to devise it in my head, I don't know whether you'd actually even need a node in order to do this. Because in essence, it would become the same as staking. Eventually, you're putting up collateral, which means you're locking PCX, which means you're sort of staking PCX, with the added function that you will also be holding a Bitcoin wallet next to it in order to actually receive the BTC. So I'm assuming you'll have to run a node. I don't know whether it's going to become part of the current nodes or whether it becomes a sort of separate node file. The way it works now, if that is any indication, the way it works now for the current trustee nodes, they run the same node as normal nodes do. They like everything that they do is already within the node binary. So the node that is running has the trustee capabilities. It's just not used for a normal node. A normal node, in order to become a trustee, would have to add a couple of would have to add a couple of parameters through the wallet in order to actually turn on this little trustee node thing.
Okay.
Same for the Vault system, but that remains to be seen in the testnet. That's what the testnet is for. Eventually, also for us to try things out.
No, that's very good. Definitely. I'm looking forward to that. But what I'm curious to hear, and this is if you know the answer to this question, is with regards to liquidity, supply and liquidity. Do we need to have a way to supply liquidity, or do we only need to be able to use PCX as collateral? I mean, how will the liquidity be, will the XBTC be generated automatically as soon as somebody sends Bitcoin over to the address and does the swap on the Vault, or not the swap, but the minting? or do we need to provide any kind of other liquidity? I mean, what do the vault nodes have to do aside from staking or locking PCX? Do they
Nothing.
need to have a VPS, basically, like a virtual private server?
That's what I'm thinking. Yes.
Yeah.
Going with the logic of just now of how the trustee nodes have a normal node and all the functionality is in there. I'm thinking in order to become a vault, you would have to run the node.
Yeah.
That's what I am guessing for now. But depending on how you interpret the words of the testnet announcement, it could be that you don't need to actually run a node, but really just have both wallets linked somehow. Then again, my guess is going to be that that you have to run a node for it, but we'll see. We'll see. That is something for me to find out as well.
Yeah, and we'll get more information towards the end of the month, I believe, as well, no?
Yes, the end of the month, the testnet should start, and I'm assuming that there's going to be a little bit more documentation around it, especially how this is actually going to work and a step-by-step on how to do it.
Yeah.
I'm expecting something like that to come around from the devs that I'll have to translate from Chinese to English. Yeah. Yes, most of that is done through Google Translate and then cleaning it up with my English knowledge, but you know, it works. It works.
No, you've done a great job.
All you professional English teachers out there, I'm sorry. Now, to get back to your liquidity question specifically,
yes. Yeah.
There's no liquidity that you have to provide. You don't have to provide any XBTC or anything. XBTC is minted and burned as BTC is deposited and withdrawn. So the system automatically does that for you, and you don't have to do anything about it. The only operation that you will have is to send the BTC back, as I think. Don't quote me on that. Do not quote me on that.
Okay, no problem.
But no, everything is handled by the system. Everything is handled by Xclaim in this case. And all you have to do is receive BTC and send BTC.
Okay.
And that should also be automated as well. So
that sounds good.
Nope.
What about
collateral?
What about the staking rewards for PCX? So for example, right now, if you're staking as a nominator to a validator, you get around 42% APY, right?
Yes.
Before the halving. So the question is now, I have read something in the article with regards to a 10% APY in addition to the normal staking reward. Do you have any more information on that, just to kind of clarify it?
So, you know, I'm going to grab it myself real quick.
No worries, no worries.
Because I don't want to misremember something and then say something wrong, and then everybody's like, but he said, yeah, I know, I'm sorry. I'm a human. Let me check, because there was a couple of things that I actually had questions about myself. So let's see. Right, okay. Now, this is written a little bit confusing in a way. But what is written is correct. It really depends on how you interpret the words that are on the page in front of you. Now, to paraphrase and not quote, because quoting is not going to make it any better, to paraphrase it, you, as a vault, you are putting PCX up as your collateral, and that collateral is sort of staked normally with the current API of 42%.
Yeah.
Now, on top of that, you get 10% of the XBTC revenue. So for those of you new and for those of you unaware of the ins and outs of ChainX, if you deposit BTC onto ChainX, so you receive the wrapped version, the substrate version XBTC, simply holding that in your wallet makes you participate in the mining of PCX. Now, why do I say mining? I know mining is usually done with those computers that do all the mathematical things. Yeah. Now, it's a terminology that was given to the tokenomics of PCX, because the tokenomics of PCX are pretty much a one-to-one with Bitcoin. There is 21 million in max. The output, I don't say reward, the output is halved every 2 years instead of 4. And therefore everything works a little bit, faster. Also the minting time, the dividend cycle, the block time in BTC terms is 5 minutes instead of 10, hence the faster halving, etc. But it's each made up of 60 blocks of each 6 seconds, so it's relatively faster than Bitcoin. But every 5 minutes, more PCX get minted. Now, that is the traditional Bitcoin mining, the same as we're doing PCX mining.
Yeah.
That PCX mining is divided into a little pie chart, and a part of it is for the dev team, a part of it is for the treasury. The treasury in this case is for on-chain governance, and that is for the counselors or for the community to use if they want to create something, or contests or things like that. And then part of that is for PCX stakers, so people who are staking PCX with a candidate node or a validator node. And then a little tiny sliver of that is part of what. So XBTC has a sort of PCX value, and that PCX value competes it with PCX in getting a share of the PCX that is minted every 5 minutes. So what that comes down to is that every 5 minutes, 50 PCX is minted.
Yeah.
And from that 50 PCX, a portion goes here, a portion goes there. The portion that is for stakers and miners, that portion is split, and both like XBTC and PCX are fighting over who gets what. And eventually PCX gets this and BTC gets something like that.
Okay, I see, right.
This, for holding XBTC, you get this amount of PCX, which is not a lot, but hey, it's something. And that is mostly done, one, to incentivize people to actually use XBTC, of course, but it's also to get a little bit of the transaction feedback, because sending XBTC on the Bitcoin chain isn't cheap. It's a whole lot better than Ethereum, but it's not cheap. And to get a little bit of that cost back, you get some PCX whilst you hold XBTC, which you can either sell or you can use. That is totally up to you. But that's a little bit to offset those transaction fees. Now,
sorry to interrupt you there. Just one question on XBTC. So when you say when you hold XBTC, so can you just hold it in your wallet, or do you have to do something with it? Can you just sell it? And is this still counted as holding, or how does that actually work?
This little bag, and it's in my wallet, and that's it. That generates PCX.
Okay, as long as you hold it in your wallet, as long as you
have it in your wallet,
generate.
Yep. As long as you have it in your wallet and it is not used in the DEX, for example, if you are putting it up for sale on an offer on the DEX for to receive PCX instead, that doesn't count. But holding it in your wallet, you earn a little bit of PCX every 5 minutes.
Wow. Okay. So
now,
you can actually double earn PCX by staking, by being a nominator, and also
you
by
can earn with both PCX. Exactly. Now, to get back to your original question, because we're getting a little bit distracted, and that's mostly my fault. That little portion of PCX that goes to all XBTC holders, part of that, 10% of that, which is going to be super tiny, but part of that, 10% of that total is going to be used for the vaults. So how? I don't know. Right now, there's not a whole lot of XBTC going around, so I don't expect it's going to be a lot. But in the future, let's say, I mean, eventually it's a long-term game. Let's say in 5 years from now, Polkadot is huge. There's all these little parachains, and people are using XBTC in the thousands of BTC, in the tens of thousands of BTC through ChainX. Then that income could become a whole lot more, and actually being a vault could be more lucrative. Wow. But just to be sure, for those of you tuning in, more interesting later on. It's not 10% extra API. It is 10% of all the XBTC that, of all the PCX that is generated for XBTC holders. Yeah. So it's probably going to be this big.
Yeah, it's a very small amount. No, but it's still good. It's an extra reward at the end of the day. Now,
exactly.
One question on the actual dApps, because you are saying that there are going to be dApps in the future building on ChainX. So is the idea that these dApps will be integrated in the web wallet and the desktop wallet, or will there be another platform where we're going to have this sort of, or is that something that's we don't know yet?
That depends on what time frame we're talking about. Initially, I'm assuming it's going to be put in the wallet, but eventually I'm thinking it's going to be its own little platform, because the end, or well, maybe not the end goal, but one of the next, create a relay chain of its own. Yeah. What do I mean with this? Polkadot is a relay chain, and Polkadot as a relay chain, there's this circle that you might have seen a couple of times with all the little parachains connected to it, and through the relay chain they all communicate with each other.
Yeah.
Now imagine that we have Polkadot over here, and then we have ChainX over here. So like there's a Polkadot and ChainX. Yeah. Now ChainX is connected to Polkadot as a parachain. This is ChainX currently, just a normal blockchain like any other parachain.
Yeah.
Now, in the future, what the plan is to make this chain a relay chain of its own, so that this this ChainX relay chain can talk to multiple parachains. Eventually, they're still parachains. They're just not Polkadot parachains. They're ChainX parachains.
Yeah. Yeah.
What could these ChainX parachains be? The XBTC bridge, the bridge, the Filecoin bridge, the dApps platform, the DEX could be. All of these things are extra blockchains that are running at exactly the same time, at the same speed as the relay chain, as Polkadot's relay chain. And that way you can have multiple transactions all together within that relay chain, within the bigger relay chain.
Wow.
So
no, that's interesting.
That situation.
Going to support Polkadot's main relay chain.
Basically, yeah. You could
take some of the load off it.
Explained it in a way of imagine the router in your house. You have a couple of computers in your house, and then you have the router, and the router connects it to the internet. Now imagine Polkadot is the internet. You can either direct to the internet, you can either connect to the internet directly with your computer, or you can go through a router, and then you can connect multiple computers to the internet. In this situation, ChainX is the router.
Yeah.
It also means that if other projects who want to either bridge to Polkadot because they are made on something else, but they want to bridge to Polkadot either way, they can either make a bridge to Polkadot directly, such as, for example, the Ethereum bridges that are being built. That's a possibility. Or you can build a bridge to the ChainX relay chain and then into Polkadot through that, which the idea is will be a little bit cheaper because it's, you know, a relay chain of a relay chain. It's like that's all far future. That's all far future. It's just, that's the plan for now.
Sorry, Alex.
And in that sense,
you got disconnected just for a moment when you said it's going to be cheaper. It's going to be like a relay chain within a relay chain. If you could just please reiterate on that bit.
Yeah. So in that future, the plan is going to be that it will become a relay chain, you know, that tiny little relay chain within the bigger relay chain, or sorry, next to the bigger relay chain. And all the bridges can be built to that, which will be within Polkadot, as Polkadot is going to be properly expensive in order to actually connect. No, ChainX is then a little bit cheaper, but that's far future. I'm assuming that's far future.
Yeah, but the question is, will there be parachain auctions on ChainX, or is it not required?
I don't know. I don't know. It could. I mean, eventually, the tech is available. At that point, it will only be a modified version of what Polkadot and what Kusama are now. Is a exact version of Polkadot, just with different parameters. So shorter staking windows, faster governance. It's exactly the same. ChainX at the moment is also exactly the same, but it has a couple of modules added to it in order to make the bridges work.
Yeah.
But in that same respect, it could be just ChainX, and we could have Parachain auctions because it is available within Polkadot. So why not? The tech is there.
No, absolutely.
Will there be? I don't know. I don't know what the devs plan is. I don't know what the community's plan is regarding this, because eventually, remember, there is no pseudo key anymore. The devs don't hold a pseudo key. You've seen the referendum before this one was a set code referendum that was to upgrade the runtime. For those of you who don't know what that is a referendum on which the entire ChainX community could vote in order to either do it or not do it. The inner core of ChainX and how it works. And in this case, it added the possibility of proxy accounts, something that is a thing in Polkadot already, but was recently added to ChainX through a referendum. Now, in the far future, whether there's going to be Parachain auctions, ChainX Parachain auctions or not, that will probably be up to the community through governance. Will we upgrade the runtime to have Parachain auctions? Yes or no? Or say Filecoin to connect to ChainX? Yes or no?
Yeah. Yeah, and just to talk about Filecoin there, thank you for that. To talk about Filecoin, I know that they are actually planning to connect to ChainX. Do you know how they're going to do that, and what are the plans? Because we haven't heard about that for quite some time. I think 2020 was the last, early 2020 or late 2019 was the last article that we've seen.
Yeah. Things changed. So ChainX, that means the very first version of Polkadot, basically.
Yeah.
Polkadot is based on Substrate. Substrate is the name of the code, so to speak. ChainX actually created its blockchain on the first version. Polkadot thought, you know what, we're going to change Substrate anyways. We're going to upgrade it to 2.0. We'll wait, and then we'll bring out 2.0, and then we'll bring out the mainnet.
Yeah.
That changed things up a little bit for ChainX. Different Substrate version that had a lot of things changed, and we had to update. That was what happened in December, with a lot of, trouble for people that didn't understand how it worked. Like, what's happening to my PCX? Well, 2.0. But basically, that created a huge workload for the dev team to change everything to the new way of doing things, the new Substrate code and everything. And now with XBTC 2.0 on trying to make this more optimized, more automated, it's a lot of workload, and things like Filecoin have kind of been put on the back burner for now. Also because, as far as I know, Filecoin is working right now, but I actually have no clue. I know that they're a mainnet as far as I know, but the last I heard was the whole debacle about how storage miners didn't have any fill to actually stake in order to become a storage miner, and then there was also nothing sold on the exchanges. That's the last I heard about that either. But eventually, once the relay chain, once ChainX becomes its own relay chain, and once everything is up to speed, XBTC 4.0 is out, that's when we'll probably see more things like this happening, where we actually have the inner core of ChainX ready in order to connect all the other things to it.
No, absolutely. Thank you for that. No, that's good. That's a really good explanation, especially for a new person who doesn't understand exactly what it's all about. Now, to move on and talk about everyone's favorite topic, I should say, because everybody just been asking me, hammering me with this in DMs and Twitter, and also comments on YouTube with regards to the SherpaX Airdrop, KSX, for PCX holders.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? And can you please explain a little bit how that's going to work? We know that it's meant to be on a 1-to-1 ratio, but I know that there has been, like in the white paper, there is a specific segment for if this happens after the halving, then you're going to get less KSX, I believe. So maybe if you could just please try to summarize that. You don't have to go into too much detail, but maybe just try to keep it short.
Okay. What is written in the white paper is correct. The idea and my personal hope is that the whole Parachain auctions will happen before the halving, because that makes things easier for everyone. The idea is that ChainX will have 10.5 million PCX have been minted, the same as with Bitcoin, and it will have, or rather the rewards will have. But beyond that point, it's no longer a 1-to-1 airdrop. Why? Because the tokenomics we devised for SherpaX at that point wouldn't work anymore if it is a perfect 1-to-1. We planned for everything to be before the halving, but Kusama is taking a while, Polkadot's taking a while. Now with the Rococo Parachains, the whole testnet thing.
Yeah.
Does the devs need all this testing time? ChainX devs also need all this time to, well, spend on XBTC 2.0, for example. They have extra time doing that now, but also, you know, the Rococo testnets, they're just important, but we didn't plan for them. So the idea is that we have put the tokenomics in such a way that half of the total KSX will be a 1-to-1 airdrop, hopefully if it's before the halving. Yeah. And the other half will be incentives. In which way, shape, or form, I cannot disclose yet. But, you know, like any other parachain, we will have to bid for a slot also on Kusama and on Polkadot. So in order to secure that slot on Kusama, we will be using a large portion of the other half, the other 10.5 million, for these purposes. Now, you might have also seen a couple of Twitter competitions already on when is the list, for example, the Kusama Parachain auction waitlist recently, where there had been KSX rewards in that as well. That is also part of the other 10.5 million.
Yeah.
So that in very simple terms, if it is before the halving and say we have 9.5 million PCX minted at that point, it will be 9.5 million PCX that 1-to-1 goes to PCX holders, and then that it becomes a matter of, say we have 11 million PCX minted, the 10.5 million KSX will then be spread over the 11 million PCX. So you get 1 to 0.99998 or whatever.
Okay. So it's not going to be a case of 0.5 per 1 PCX or
something. I'm not assuming so, no.
Okay.
I mean, if we're taking how fast PCX will be increasing at that point, 5 PCX per 5 minutes. So taking over a grand total of 10.5 million, in the next 2 years, there will be 5.25 million PCX added over the course of 2 years, which is roughly 2.5 million in 1 year, which in a month divided by 12 would then be 20,000 PCX. So instead of a 1-to-1, you would have 20,000 PCX less over PCX shared over everyone. So eventually that would mean per PCX you'd lose 0.9998, something like that.
Okay.
Something along those lines, where 1 to 0.9998.
It's not a very big deal. Yeah, it's something that we can all live with.
And that is if it's a month after the halving. The halving is roughly estimated to be around the 5th of June.
Wow, really? So it's moved from May now.
Yes.
Because of the blocks.
It really depends on the block time. If the block time has been the blocks, yeah. If so, Bitcoin is every block in Bitcoin is made roughly every 10 minutes. But if sometimes the miners are faster, sometimes the miners are slower, so it kind of fluctuates a little bit. A blockchain doesn't work on time. A blockchain counts by blocks. So if a block is slower or if a block is made faster, that point in time, that specific block is going to come sooner or later. Chain initially went live the 25th of May in 2019. So perfectly 2 years later would be the 25th of May, 2021. But block time doesn't work like that. There have been some issues here and there. Blocks have been slower, blocks have been faster. Currently, we're estimating the 5th of June. If all of a sudden we have a major blockchain issue where every block is made every 7 seconds instead, for example, it could become July. If all of a sudden all the blocks are made every 5 seconds, it could kind of a guessing game, but we're sticking to the 5th of June for now. So back to the original question of KSX and how will the snapshot happen. If everything is done before the 5th of June or after the 5th of June, doesn't even matter. The actual process, as far as I've been able to deduct, I haven't spoken at length about it with the devs of how it technically will work because they have better things. The way I kind of started explaining it to people is that it's not exactly an airdrop, it's rather a fork. Think of it like a fork. At one point in time, like with Ethereum Classic, for example, at one point in time, they simply said, this is the block, and from here we split our ways. So from this block, we create a sort of copy of PCX, and from that point forward, KSX becomes its own thing. That is a snapshot date.
No, that's good.
And if anything that happened before that block will be registered also in KSX. Everything that happens after that block will not be registered in KSX because the snapshot has been taken, and everything that happens after that isn't saved, basically. So what happens then? Once that snapshot is used as a sort of starting point for KSX, you then have these two chains running. ChainX is still running. Nothing is going to happen there. But KSX at one point is stuck here and is then going to... You could technically use the private key that you had for PCX and then simply put it into the KSX chain, and it should open the exact same wallet with the exact same amount of PCX in there, but it just has a different label called KSX. That's a theory. That's how I'm expecting things to go. So really, the easiest way to explain it is to just say it's a fork. Yeah. I know we've used the airdrop name, and actually the whole airdrop thing was something that wasn't even supposed to come out for a long while. But somebody simply called it an airdrop, and the community has kind of grabbed that, like, oh my god, KSX airdrop is incoming and it's going to happen next week. And you get people thinking, you get people going like, free money. It doesn't really work like that.
Yeah.
So it's technically not an airdrop. It's just the terminology that has been given to the whole idea. Yeah. And I'm fine with it because eventually the result is the same.
No, that's good. That's good. And people are definitely into that. Like, not only are they, because they're supporting obviously PCX, but also, free coins at the end of the day. Why not? So everybody's hyped about that. Now, for the icebreaker question, how much do you think KSX is going to be worth when it hits exchanges? We know MXC is going to list them because they're supporting the airdrop. What are you speculating is going to be worth?
I've seen a couple of
wild guess.
I've seen a perspectives on this from the community. Somebody argued that it would have the same relationship as Kusama and Polkadot will, meaning if you take today's price of Kusama and today's price of DOT and you moderate them a little bit to have the same tokenomics or the same total supply, etc. If you were to do that, then Kusama X if you were to apply that same ratio to PCX, you could say that PCX and KSX, you could say that PCX is now, say, $10. KSX will therefore be $4. It was an interesting take. I don't know if I agree. I am a firm believer in zero, because eventually it doesn't have any inherent value. It is just a utility token, just like PCX. It is a utility, etc., etc. So what is the value of such a coin? That really depends on what people want to pay for it. Just like with PCX, just like with Ethereum, just like Bitcoin. What do people want to pay for it? What do people, partially, what do they want to pay for it, and what do they perceive as the value? Now, some other people said, well, it's probably going to start at some point, just like any other ICO, for example, any other initial coin offering. People have this idea for, okay, it's going to be $4, $5, and then you see it up to wherever it goes, and then it comes crashing down, and eventually it finds its middle ground. I think it will be something like this. Maybe people will be like, yes, KSX, free money, dump it all on the exchanges. Maybe people will be like, yes, KSX, more staking. And then we'll see where that goes.
No, absolutely. And we have to remember the trading bots on exchanges are the ones that are triggering the price to go up at the beginning, and then it comes crashing, and then it's the actual trading activity from the users. And I know some people can get bitten, but normally what happens in the very first second, like the very first 10, 20 seconds, you can't even place a trade. It's just like so fast. It happens so quickly that you don't have the time to react. So really, it's not until the dump that you can actually start to look at buying or selling. So yeah, it will be interesting
Exactly.
to see how it's going to act. Yeah, personally, if I was to take a wild guess, I would say around the $3 range. Just pure speculation. I'd say $3 range, stabilizing on the first day. On average.
That could work.
Yeah,
it might. I mean, maybe even if people see $3, they're like, wow, who knows?
It all depends.
Eventually people are going to,
it all depends on how the market's going to be. If the market is in a bullish day, like if it's in a very green day, then I think that this could have good potential.
It definitely could.
Yeah.
Though I'm not much, of a speculating man. I just take other people's word and be like, yeah, that's an interesting theory. Yeah, that could happen. Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, nobody really knows. It's just
exactly.
Whatever the market does, what the market does,
Exactly. And there's loads of people that have a way better sense for the market. And I guess it's better to listen to them than to listen to me, really.
No, absolutely. Thank you very much for that. Just a few last words for the community, and what's your take on the upcoming Parachain auction for ChainX? What do you want to tell people? Just any final words that you wish to tell them.
Am I going to say this? Am I going to say it? Okay, so I'm going to keep it as any other Parachain. I'm expecting that we'll be bidding for a Parachain slot in the Parachain auction, both for KSX and both for PCX. But we might or might not have something interesting in the making. And it's kind of up to the dev team whether they can make it reality or not. But there is an interest. Make a different sort of auction plan, so to say.
Okay, so we're not going to see anything special like PCX being rewarded to people that are bidding for ChainX to bond.
Oh, probably, but maybe not in the way you're expecting
on the side.
Well, you know what? I'm going to leave that speculation to you.
Okay, cool. No problem. No, that's it. Thank you very much for joining and for sharing your information on your knowledge on ChainX. That's great.
You're very welcome.
I hope you have learned more as the viewer, because that's the important thing, and that's the whole purpose of these kind of collaborations or interviews, just to help the community learn more and also to educate everyone, right? Because if you're learning more, you could then spread the word and tell others and maybe recommend this video so that they could learn more too. Alex, thank you very much for joining, and I hope to see you again in the near future to talk about the future updates of ChainX.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.